Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'd love to be doing a live stream Thursday afternoon. Except, as you know, YouTube's been screwing with me. Got a 2-year-old video. Harassment and bullying or some nonsense. Garbage. But that won't stop us because we're still going to record this and release it. Which I'll probably end up actually releasing tomorrow morning. But, you know, we talked about WebBot stuff, and one of Clif's favorite things is, man, I can't wait for the flying car stuff. So I told him before, as soon as we get started recording, I'm going to show him a little clip that's really, really neat. And here we go. And I'm not sure that you guys will be able to hear it, so just bear with me. Not that you need to hear it.
Oh, cool. Are these for sale?
I'm wondering myself.
I'd want an airbag on that baby.
Or a parachute.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just put a parachute on the whole thing.
Oh yeah. And an airbag around the whole thing too, so you bounce when you land. Yeah, that's so cool.
That is, yeah. So it begs
really
the question of what's the range and what's the payload? You know, can I use it to go south a half an hour and do my shopping?
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's see. Opener.arrow. Let's take a look while we're chatting.
It's not exactly the anti-gravitic type of stuff.
No,
Not
but
yet.
it's still, it's a little clunky in terms of how it looks, but the movements it makes are quite elegant, really.
Yeah. Let's see.
And I can see how you could have a larger lithium battery in there powering all of that. Probably get some decent range out of it.
Well, especially if we start getting into some really cool battery technology that takes it to the next level, you know?
Yeah.
Watt hours per mile. Oh, it's even better in an electric car.
Yeah.
Specifications. Do we have any times in here? Charge time. Range with reserve.
25 miles.
25 miles US, 40 miles international.
Why is it different outside the U.S.?
Yeah, I know. That's
question.
odd, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe they can use a different battery technology.
Oh yeah.
So
But,
25 miles.
I mean,
That's
25
not quite going to do it.
No, not good enough, but it's a, you know, it's a start.
Yeah, it's a
It's
step.
what you said was coming.
Yeah.
And, you know, we don't go from horse and buggy to cars all of a sudden to anti-gravity. You know, of course everybody knows that. But this is it. We start doing typical quadcopter technology, except for humans. You know, instead of playing with a remote control, we get into the damn thing and fly it. But yeah, I mean, even 25 miles, but 40 miles even. You get to where you're going to, you plug in. When you're done, you come back. You know, plug in. Kind of like you know the old Nissan Leaf. So, anyways, I had to start us off with that. I knew Clif especially would get a kick out of that. It was very elegant. You know, just like almost like it was dancing. You know, just kind of really neat.
Butterfly kind of motions. You know, in terms of how it was behaving. Yeah.
Really neat.
I was just in a helicopter over the Grand Canyon, and I absolutely hate heights, but I had to do it because you just don't get the perspective you get when you're hovering above it. And then there was a thunderstorm while we were going, and the pilot's all confident. Yeah, we'll just follow behind the thunderstorm and then zoop through the canyon over here. And I'm like, holy moly! So yeah, it might take me a while to get used to a flying car.
Was that your first helicopter ride?
No, I had been in a helicopter when I was in the banking world, 15 years ago, over a mine site. It was scared me then, and it scared me this time. But this time, it was so beautiful. And as we came over the canyon ridge, it was right above that area of the confluence, the Little Colorado and the Colorado, where all the supposed gold and Indian artifacts are, or Egyptian artifacts. But coming over, and the pilot, you have headsets on. The pilot was playing the Indiana Jones theme song. That's why I wore this outfit today.
Cool.
Yeah.
And
So
by
fitting.
the way, yes, I did find gold in the Grand Canyon. There's little specks of gold in here. This pebble was in my shoe because you're not allowed to remove anything from the Grand Canyon. I got home to California and this was in my shoe. If the national parks wants it back, I will mail it to them, no problem. But this little pebble was in my shoe, and it does have little specks of what they call gold flour in it. And this is from Lee's Ferry, and I saw it. I mean, you see, 100 years ago they were mining there. These huge mining. I don't even know what escarpment is that what it's called? Yeah. Where you rip out the side of a hill. So all that is true. I'm doing a book about it now, and yeah, that's been locked up since the creation of the Federal Reserve. So very exciting times coming, I think.
You were probably pretty excited, huh? Just to go be at the spot, rough close to the spot.
And I saw the steamship that was sunk, in 1913. They put it into action, and then they said, "All right, you can't mine here anymore. Shut it down. Shut everything down." And the steamship is still there. Just the hull of it, or the metal part, is still there, rusting away on the side of the bank at Lee's Ferry. And unbelievable area. It's hard to get to. There was maybe 10 people there when we when we got there, but that's where they put all the river rafts in for going down that part of the Colorado River. Unbelievable. But you're walking around in 100-degree heat, which was not that hot for there, I hear. And you look at the rock and you're like, it's glimmering. It's literally glimmering with this stuff they call gold flour, which is like little tiny micro pieces of gold, just like they had in the article, but there's so much of it. And it is shocking that none of that is allowed to be explored. Although I get it also in that it is probably the most beautiful place on planet Earth. And you don't want, the countryside or the wall caverns to be ripped apart for little pieces of gold that we don't need in the future. Yeah. Who needs gold when we got cryptos? So that was my ultimate conclusion is I get why they did it. I get why they created the Federal Reserve and said, we don't need to rip apart Mother Nature to play this con of the gold standard, or, will we need money in the future? I basically came out of there saying, hey, I'd rather have the Grand Canyon than all the gold in the world, because it's so beautiful and it's so important to the Native Americans, the Hopi tradition and things like that, and all the so-called mountains in there that look exactly like pyramids, ancient pyramids. That's what I'm doing some work on now. I'm trying to figure out, how were those things formed? It wasn't the river that caused them. I want to know how the Grand Canyon was formed. So yeah, very exciting times in the Grand Canyon.
Well, the nature of the canyon, first off, there's those that speculate it was a Velikovsky kind of moment, that when Venus was being captured by our sun, Venus being an exoplanet, or just off on its own, that at that point there was giant electricity, and the Mesoamericans, far south in Central America, recorded that places north of them were points of origin for these giant electrical bolts that joined Earth, Mars, Venus, and the Sun. And the speculation was, because of the time they recorded it, that it was done at the height, that this capture of Venus was at the height of the return current. And so every year in August, mostly, sometimes late July, sometimes as late as well into September, we have this return current sheet of electricity that goes from Earth to the Sun. Usually the rest of the year, the other 11 months of the year, we get electricity from the Sun. This is like the common, the neutral, or the ground, in which we get an evening out of the electrical potential within the solar system. And at that point, the electrical discharge from the Earth to the sun is at its maximum point. This is also coincident with hurricanes and other cyclonic storms, which are the result not of warm water per se, but of high charged ionosphere trying to ground itself out to the Earth as part of this return current sheet. And that was the point at which the Mesoamericans were saying that there was basically an electrical discharge, a short circuit, if you will, that joined us with Venus and Mars. And coincidentally, both Earth and Mars have these giant Grand Canyon-like structures that, according to the Mesoamerican discussions on it, were the result of lightning grounding out in that area in this cross-planetary electrical discharge thing. Wow. So so it makes a lot more sense than gradual erosion, which wouldn't account for the shapes that we've got there and all of that. Yeah.
I mean, a mile straight down a cliff, that is not caused by a
gentle river. Yeah.
It's so ridiculous. Our history is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
The more you dig into this stuff, the more you say, how have we been fooled for so long? And then you look at the mass media today, and they lie about everything. If you're not taught the real things when you're a kid, you're not going to believe them when you're older. And then you got to, unless you open your mind to stuff and say, okay, maybe the world is not what they told us it was. Maybe there was civilizations here many, many, many thousands, probably millions of years before us. And if we can't make the pyramids today and lift those stones with our modern equipment, how did they do it, 10,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, whatever ridiculous number they pretend is a fact. And I'm in awe of everything these days that, it's like I'm waking up. It's another waking up thing. First you wake up to the financial thing, and then you wake up to, all these other things, and it's really cool.
Well, and the financial thing is actually to cover up some of the other stuff. Yeah. But I'm with you about the Grand Canyon. Even if it's chock full of gold, I think it's far more valuable as a source of information for, hundreds of years as we get in there and dig around and find out basically what the hell, guys, and, what went down there. And information is far more valuable than any amount of wealth or, stuff. And gold, even in that case, it's like, just doesn't stack up to what we can learn there.
Did you see the RV session with Dick Allgaier?
No, I haven't. I haven't looked.
Oh my God! So I sent him a target, and the target was this guy Seth Tanner, this old guy who was blinded. And my question attached to the target was, what is it that this person Seth Tanner saw that made him go blind? And of course, it's given to Dick with just numbers, right? So he does this RV session about going into a cave, and the cave is full of very ornate carvings and mummies and people working diligently to create this. It's kind of like an altar, and it's the 50,000 people lived in there, just like the article from the Arizona Gazette from 1909. He describes it in detail, but then he also describes later on when it was found. He goes from the origins of it to when it was found and removed from. He shows people very diligently removing all the artifacts in a more advanced time, probably around the whatever when they discovered it in the early 1900s. So it was all removed. So my quest to go see this part of it, I said, well, I just walk into an empty cave because they've removed everything, all the quote Egyptian artifacts. We all know they're not Egyptian, but amazing. And he did this from a little number. When I said, what is this guy Seth Tanner? What did he see? And the story goes, he saw an ancient Hopi place that he was not supposed to see, and the Hopi blinded him. So I'm truthfully, at the end of the day, with this whole Grand Canyon thing, I'm more in tune to believing the oral histories of the people around the area than I am in believing what's written down in books.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it's like they say, the old saying, I don't remember where this came from, but when I first read it, I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. I'm going to use this forever. And they say, the truth. It's, why it's so hard to wake people up and why it's hard for people to accept the real truth. Because the first time they experience something, that becomes their truth. That's their matrix to compare everything else by. So if you're taught, like you said earlier, you're taught something in school, and it's pounded in your head, 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, and then everyone else around you is the same way. We all think the same thing because we were all taught the same thing. Then, old Jsnip or Clif or Bix comes out and says, hey, that's wrong. We're laughed at. Yet the information is actually true. Yeah, if we're lucky. Just as an example. So yeah, it's because you compare what this person just told me to my matrix, my truth. But what if your truth was wrong? And if someone can make the connection, say, yeah, I never thought about that. What if we got the bad information from day one? But it's hard for people to feel that way because they feel like somebody somewhere would have caught on to this, and we would have made it right then. Well, that's you. That's like, well, no, that's you right now. They've been good at hiding it. They've been good at lying to us. And
doing some
videos today for.
I say the Smithsonian. They're professionals.
Yeah.
Well, that's something around the Lee's Ferry. They said what went on at Lee's Ferry way back in the early 1900s, and then they shut everything down when they created the Federal Reserve System and turned the Grand Canyon National Park. Well, the Smithsonian stayed there, and they built these little kind of buildings at Lee's Ferry, along with the USGS, that were there for over 100 years, and 2 of the buildings are still standing. So the thought that the Smithsonian is some gentle museum in Washington D.C. is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard. It is literally, it's the Indiana Jones. We've got top men working on this at the very end of the movie, and they throw it in some warehouse. I would love.
It's worse. It's worse than that. They're actually the Adjustment Bureau. They're constantly rewriting, pulling out of place artifacts out of history and trying to patch over all the holes just to support the vision that they're trying to sell to all the kids.
Yep.
It must be so hard to do, and they must at times just laugh at themselves, saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe anybody's going to believe this," but people are so entrained to believe what they're told.
Yeah.
By the authorities. Yep.
Yeah.
The Smithsonian, such a prestigious institution. We would never do such a thing. Kind of like the Catholic Church. Oh yeah, the holiest place on earth. Sure.
Well, you look at the contradictions. Smithsonian, big ass museum. It's like, when was the last time you guys went to a Smithsonian exhibition of anything?
Right.
They don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't do that. They don't show you what they've got.
They give you a monthly magazine. How's that?
Okay, cool.
I'd look at it. I'm like, come on, give me some good stuff here.
Yeah. Did you guys find more crystal skulls or something? Come on, what is this? And then you have these discoveries sometimes in Egypt that, something great. Oh, never mind. Oh, something great. Oh, never mind. The same thing's happening over there too. Unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's the same crowd that's in control all the way through and stuff. Yeah. It's like when I was a kid in Europe, all of the school outings, they would haul you around to all the museums. And on castles and everything, and it sounds great, but you get really bored looking at cathedrals and museums as a kid, every damn week kind of thing. But something that I noticed then that we didn't see when we were in Europe in the early 2000s, because they've all been scrubbed from the museums, the same museums I'd gone to as a kid. You wouldn't think the exhibitions would have changed that much for a museum that's 600 years old, right? They just recycled through so much stuff. But when I was a kid, I was quite fascinated by all of the portraits of all of the royals with their protruding lower jaws, all the inbreeding, and their elongated skulls with no hair, or with just a little spot of hair on one side of their head, wearing these funny headdresses. And it's like, even as a kid there, I was thinking, why are all of the rulers, first off, the British school system didn't teach anything except the lives of the royals, right? That was history to them, and all the battles that the royals caused that the people of Britain won. But beyond that contradiction that there was no history of the British people, it was a history of the royals. All of the museums and all of the field trips and everything featured all of the royals from Europe, and they were all elongated skull people. The further you went back into history, back into the 11, 12, 1300s, especially down into the southern regions of Italy and Greece and all of these kind of places, and Venice. Venice was a hotbed of them. you'd find out that, all of the women were elongated skull women that had no hair on their heads. And they looked a lot like the bust of Queen Nefertiti. And it's just directly over from Egypt and stuff. And then we went back in the early 2000s and had an extensive tour of Europe. Kathy and I did. And we went to some of the same museums I'd gone to as a kid, just for nostalgia's sake, right? I didn't get to those in Germany because we didn't go there, but we went in Holland and Netherlands and France. And all of the pictures are gone. All the portraits of all of the royals are missing. And they're just simply not being displayed. Something else is being displayed, usually some kind of, landscapey kind of scene or castles or something like that. And I kind of wondered, where are all the cone heads? They're just not being displayed the way that they used to. And so is it because of the generalized awakening and people are starting to recognize this sort of thing and the powers that be don't want to reinforce that? Or, are they aware that the wave is starting to really reach for them?
I think that really ties into what's going on today, for example, with the shutting down of the SGT report videos. He just got back up because everybody was yelling and screaming. But he had over 1,000 videos literally documenting what was going on. And to think about, if YouTube has the power to click, make that disappear, all that information go away. If he had some backups and all that, I'm not worried about that. But YouTube is the largest platform. It gets out to the most people. This is them erasing history. This is them book burning, literally. And that's really got me going. And I was sending out videos and stuff saying, oh my God, how much power do these people have to just erase history? It said that the victors create, they're the ones who get to write history. But, we're living through it right now. If they erase all this amazing information that the YouTube evangelists have gone out and studied and put on YouTube, what's going to happen to the future when, if the bad guys win and take over and all of a sudden there is no history? It's been deleted because there's somebody that wanted to hit the delete button. We got to start fresh, scraping and scrapping our way to put pieces of the puzzle together for the next generation.
Yep.
Well, we're there already, though, Guy. I mean, that's exactly what we're doing. Is that and fortunately, there's millions of people that are doing work this way. A lot of people that simply back up YouTube videos of stuff they find to be accurate, and just for their own repository or for their next generation kind of a thing. But we're in that battle now. They are scrubbing history. It's very much Department of History or the Adjustment Bureau, that sort of thing. They've been at it far longer than our lives. They've been at it for multiple generations. So we're necessarily playing catch up. What they don't get, though, is that it's not a function of like crowd noise. Okay, so it's not a function of the same kind of math going through the social order as you might find in a soccer game or a football game or something, where a spark can go around the whole stadium relatively quickly. The Great Awakening wave, whatever its cause, is an individual shift, a paradigm shift within individual humans that provides that human with a time period of some unknown amount in which their perception is changed. Their door to reality has a new color, and it opens a little bit differently, and they are receptive to that change during that period of time. Now, it's up to universe to provide them with the pathway from that period forward or not, as is their particular karma. I think that the bad guys think it's a question of if you shout it long enough, people will wake up. And I don't see that as the way it works, okay? Like Joe was saying way back in the beginning of this, and I was saying that, we're lucky if they laugh at us. Being the iconoclast and doubting the established authorities usually brings you grief and ridicule, and as I say, if you're lucky, only ridicule. But there's a point at which the persistence of that iconoclastic view, that disputing view, finds a receptive audience, not because it is earned or deserved, but because it serves a function within universe. And universe wants the chaos, it wants the growth. There is no growth of an organism without struggle. So it's necessary that the generations that follow us struggle through to their own awakening because they earn it that way. It's not given to them. It's not an entitlement or something. They actually have to sweat and suffer, and then they'll grasp it, hold on to it, and nurture it, and so on. And without that struggle, they won't value it. So it's just basically the way that the universe would have it. And fortunately for us, it's an oscillation, and we're on the upswing with our particular iconoclastic view, and the bad guys are on the downswing on theirs. This might change 50 years from now, 100 years from now, or whatever, but at this period of time, we're winning. And it's not because of anything that we necessarily, deserve to have happen, or because of our hard work, although everybody works hard and we do deserve it to happen. It's simply because it happens to suit universe that such things should occur at this particular point. And of course, it's coincidental with moving into the age of Aquarius or knowledge, the all of the stuff with the planets that support the unexpected and leaps into technology, all aligning, so to speak, with our fixed stars of where we want to go. And so in this sense, I believe the good guys will win, although like all things, I believe that battle, or that state of winning will be merely temporary. And that's just the way it should be. There just should be all this contention and stuff. And it's kind of cool at the moment because you do come across people that are waking up, and it's it's rough on them, but it's also super exciting for them. Imagine a guy in his 60s that's coming across this knowledge at this point. It gives him a whole new dimension on his life, and basically something to look forward to as he goes forward, because it's all new. It's a whole new planet. Once you start examining some of this, it's also really cool. About the SGT report getting put back up, and I think there's a certain satisfaction in the appraisal by YouTube. And they basically had to come to the conclusion there's just too much here to suppress, and that we're going to get ourselves in a world of butthurt trying to maintain a posture that's basically untenable. And so the thing to do is to cave in early and let it die off, and it not be a point of contention. So that kind of thing right there tells me that someone somewhere is under enough pressure to have to choose their battles, and they can't just take those that are plopped in on them.
Let me interrupt right there. Because you normally get a notification from YouTube that says, hey, this video has violated our whatever rules, and bullying and harassment, or this reason or that reason, or whatever. He got no such notice on his third and final strike where they wiped him out. He got no email, he got no notice. In other words, the system didn't just kick in like it does. Somebody had to pull the trigger within that system, the YouTube system that is, to say, we're just taking this guy out right now. No, we're not waiting for someone to flag, even if it's one of our own people flagging it. Nope, we're just taking him down. And likewise, when his channel got restored yesterday, last night, no email, and they said I saw his Twitter feed, at Team YouTube said to him, we'll go look into this and we'll reply here in Twitter. And his last comment was that nobody told him why they took it down, nor did they tell him why they restored it. And he says, we really need to help the Health Ranger and High Impact Flicks, because those two people got hit with the ugly stick, had hundreds of thousands of viewers themselves, and we're doing the same kind of thing, just in their own different, topics or whatever. And I agree. We should make some noise over on Twitter for those guys too. But like you said, this is them decide to pick and choose. You know what? This guy's got a lot of support. Let's back off on this guy. Now his channel's back to the way it was.
And you can see that the structure of that they've got to have, the system that they've got to have, it's going to delegate the power to pull the plug to lower and lower levels of authority. And then once they do pull the plug on somebody like SGT Report, you get to a situation where it's got to have to be like confirmed up the chain of command. And I bet you there was somebody in the chain of command that said, "Holy shit, you people don't know what you're doing, blah, 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 put it back."
It's possible, yeah. Who knows how high that chain, that ladder goes.
Well, and the thing is that, it's algorithmic up to a certain extent. You can get away with quite a bit of stuff, but pulling on SGT Report was not the result of the algorithms, right? those are triggered by the uploading of the new video and sweeping through it and demonetizing it and these kinds of things. So to raise it to the level where they actually had a kill order out on the whole channel obviously was in the human chain of command there. How short it is anybody's guess, but I know that they've had to. The YouTube has recently been hiring a lot of people that they're trying to shove into their, let's call it quality management system, because they get so many different videos in any given minute. Well, I guess the statistics are that they're still getting about 400 minutes of video for every minute of elapsed time. And so, you got to have the algorithms can go through it, but you've got to have some level of human eyeballs on it to get all the stuff that you're missing. And the algorithms are relatively easy to game, all right? Because for instance, some people got their channels demonetized and kicked off, or strikes against them for mentioning the names of towns in which school shootings took place. And if you avoid certain language, you can still use other language to discuss the subject, and the algorithms don't pick up on it. And so they have these very basic kind of keyword things in there. And if you use your smarts about covering current events, you don't use keywords that are likely to be flagged by the algorithm. So if you had you could probably do a Twitter search on the Twitter stream, put in the name of a place of a false flag or what's suspected false flag, and then on the first top 20 associated words with that are returned with that, you go ahead and use as my avoidance list, because the algorithms will be picking up those and using them to flag the videos that they want taken down. So you can play games with the algorithm, and at some point there might be some machine learning going on that actually start learning from you, but then they're going to end up having to basically ban all speech because they recognize they're being tricked. So it's a screwy world, though, guys. There are people trying to make the money off of YouTube, and then with the adpocalypse and all these other hiccups in the system, it makes even more sense to diversify all of your efforts as a independent content creator, to where you have your own website, you have your own Patreon account, own Twitter account, and your Vimeo, Dailymotion, some of these other video sites, and it's a pain in the butt to work, but you can have automated systems that would upload not only YouTube, but would upload to all of the channels with your settings on them and so on, so that you would have some level of independence from what happens in YouTube. And you can always use Twitter and the Gab AI and a few of these other Telegram and these kind of things as offsets to what's going on YouTube, and as a way of growing an audience that's not within their particular control.
Yeah, the problem with that is, and then I think SGT said the same thing, which was, everybody's on YouTube. That's where we want to wake people up, because that's where the people are, and there's not so many people on Gab or the new Real.video. Mike Adams, I think, is doing that one.
Yeah.
Or some other ones. It'll be more of our own people, but it's like, okay, we love you guys, but we need new people, because we need to, as a society, we need to wake up new people to what's happening. And it's a good argument that, oh yeah, you go where the people go, So yeah, but what at the other side of it is, well, what do? Either just go on YouTube, you get banned and you're finished, or do like you said and upload to other sites, and just to at least have your core following at least know where they can find you should something go awry.
Well, there's another aspect of that too, though, and that is the combinoric effect of social media. And so I know from having done advertising that I can get keywords off of Twitter, plow them into YouTube metrics, and do better on my videos there. I know that just by having the connection between G++, or G+, whatever it is, Google Plus's, their social media, and Twitter and some of these others, that you can boost views on YouTube. YouTube is not ignorant of that, okay? They know where the traffic is coming from. And so what gives somebody a lot of power would be to have a big Twitter following, which is all in real time, and use Twitter to direct people over to your YouTube videos. Now, Twitter doesn't like this because they want to keep you on Twitter. That's the whole point, is for the advertising revenue, the eyeball, to keep you there as long as possible. Same thing is true of Facebook and so on. And so you redirect over to YouTube. YouTube is quite happy to accept that they've got someone that's moving traffic off of other social platforms onto theirs. But it's a double-edged sword, because if you've got a big following on Twitter and then you get yanked on YouTube, then you've got the power on Twitter to go on over there and make a big stink about it. And if you've got enough followers on Twitter, then and they start picking up with a hashtag, unban Mike or whatever it is, right? And start also bombing the YouTube team with their tweets, then they feel it at a real-time basis because they're living that particular analytic measurement, which is that your presence on Twitter is directing a lot of very negative traffic in the way of YouTube. And so, the larger the following on Twitter, the better you will do on YouTube, good or bad conditions there. So if you got good conditions, you can redirect more traffic to YouTube, get better views, etc. And if you're fighting with them, well, you've got more people on your side from the Twitter side that all they have to do is to send an angry tweet, and it starts getting the attention of the small number of people that have to deal with that aspect of the interaction of YouTube to these other social media.
So you got that, everybody out there watching this video? You should all subscribe to our Twitter accounts, right? At Road to Ruta. What, Cliff, what's yours?
At Clif_high.
And don't forget, there's people stealing these, like there'll be 2Fs in Clif and all that. Make sure you're on the real one. What's yours, Joe?
I think mine's just at Realist News.
There you go. So everybody who's watching this video, all 100,000, 200, this might be a viral video, 1 million people. Go in and sign up for our Twitter account.
Well, let's.
Well, hopefully we won't be scrapping with YouTube and need the assistance.
Yeah, we don't want to. We don't want to fight.
Joe can't do live videos. He's already fighting.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
So
and they never really tell you what it was you'd done.
No, and it said you have 6 days to view your video before we really take it down. So I'll go watch it.
I got an email from YouTube about Joe's takedown. It was because his head was too shiny on the screen.
Yeah, blinding too many people. Right.
Yeah, it's very vague. There's no, and the thing is, the stuff that they're doing is really something that a court should decide. Honestly, you can't really have employees making court decisions, judge decisions. And it's, again, they write their terms and conditions so vague. I mean, I've got over 4,000 videos on YouTube. You could easily find 1, 2, or 3, I'm sure, and say, when he said that one thing right there in this 20-minute video, on minute 5 to 10 seconds, and at the 10-minute mark, I think we can get him on this. I've got 4,000 videos. You could probably find anything. Ask a cop, hey, if you really wanted to give someone a ticket, how long do you think you'd have to follow them? Oh, a few minutes, I'd be able to write 3 or 4 tickets.
Yeah.
They'll tell you. Because you didn't do a turn signal. Oh, you didn't make a full complete stop. Oh, you did stop, but you passed the white stop bar first. You can't pass the stop bar. You got to come back first. I mean, they could just pick you apart. But we expect, and normally we see that, cops are out there doing that. Every now and then the case comes up where there's a small town that's ticketing all the out-of-towners and, things like that. But generally speaking, you got a cop, they understand this stuff. They're not out there to try and abuse their power, that kind of thing. But again, I question the motives of the top 3 internet, beasts out there: Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. This is where all of the traffic is at. And it's not, I was just doing a video this morning, which I haven't even released yet, for tomorrow, where I talk about Twitter and some of their own quotes and things are saying, people are like, why are all these Republican or right party system people, you can't search for them? And your little search bar up there, you type their name and they don't even come up. Oh, well, it's not based off of their tweets or anything. It's based off of their behavior patterns that we've picked up on. So how does someone have a behavior? And then I saw one of their other quotes, and it was something like, and maybe it was the CEO that started talking. He's like, it's in other words, if I follow, and I use the example, let's say I'm following Alex Jones on Twitter, and I don't tweet anything, but I'm following him. And all of a sudden I decide I want to start tweeting now. It will actually affect me not getting as many subscribers and pushing me down the list, basically. Or someone tries to search for me and they can't even find my name because I'm associated, so to speak, with Alex Jones just because I hit follow him. That was kind of what their response was. They didn't use the word Alex Jones, but they're like, oh, well, you know, those if you're following racists and you're following the, and I said, that's on the surface. They're going to use the word racist. Oh yeah, I don't want to be following any racist. But that also includes someone who doesn't have the same views as them. Same algorithm will be applied. You know, you're not liberal left, okay? Sorry, you don't get to rise as fast as the left-leaning people. They get to start a new Twitter account and, lost somebody. We lose Cliff.
I'm still here.
Or hold on, maybe I did. Oh, there it goes.
I'm back.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Something happened. They don't want you saying that, Joe. They don't want you saying that.
Okay. Yes, sir. We'll stop. We'll move on. So
the man upstairs.
Pretty much done, anyways. You know, but yeah, it's just they understand. My other which I think I released today. I mentioned SGT. Hey, he got his video back, his channel back, and an interesting thing from Rand Corporation. They have you know how when you're reading your tweets, you scroll down and then there's an ad, promotional tweet, right?
Yeah.
And this was from January because I saw the date. It was January this year from Rand Corporation. And it said something about the diminishing role the truth plays in people today. So in other words, their truth, Ministry of Truth, CNN, and those guys, the diminishing role the truth plays. This is exactly what we're talking about. We know it's fake. That's not truth. But Rand Corporation, if you don't have time to read our 325-page report, click here and we'll give you a summary. That's what the ad said. So why would the Rand Corporation, what the hell does that have to do with catching people's attention on Twitter? Hey, look, you know, the diminishing role of the truth. No, how about this? It was never the truth. Like we talked about earlier, the matrix, the foundation of the truth, it was never the truth. And people are realizing now, oh my God, I've been believing this source, different things from this source or these sources that are time and time again wrong, and now I'm really questioning, has everything they told me been wrong? And I actually think yes. Holy crap, I need to educate myself now. And you start going to YouTubes and Twitters and all these places, find people like me, you, Bix, others, you know, Sean. And, oh, that resonates. Oh, that makes sense. Next thing you know, they're hooked. And Rand has to come out and put an ad out there. No, come back. Look. No.
Yeah, but if Rand does something, it's because the government paid him.
Absolutely.
Okay. They make their money exclusively off of federal government.
Yeah, we paid for
it.
You and I paid for that advertisement to try to.
So someone made a decision to ask Rand to do a study, and it was probably about whether or not the official paradigm is still able to be sold.
Right.
You know, to the populace, and that was their conclusion.
No. Resounding no.
Exactly. You can't get away with that shit anymore.
The conclusion came back as, on what planet?
Yeah.
Here's your answer. Oh, that's not looking good, guys. But like you said, it's time.
It's terrible for us too. You know, the participants in this drama as the pawns of it all. You know, and look at the okay. So you were talking about how the alt-right just isn't allowed to rise. They're not allowed to gain as many followers. They're not supplied in on searches. And this is very terrible. This is one of the reasons that I stopped supporting the advertising book I wrote, was because the censorship at an algorithmic level is excluding giant chunks of their Twitter audience and other social media just by that algorithm. And you know that certain things are never, ever going to make the trending section of YouTube or Twitter or any of these kind of things. And so there's this walk away movement, right? Hashtag walk away, where people are giving their stories about why they're walking away from the progressive socialist left. And it's not going trending, although it's certainly viral and it's certainly growing at an exponential rate. It's not being supported by the social media. And so it's rather interesting to see the pressure of that as an outside observer, to see the pressure of the people that are actually waking up and doing the videos and the sheer number of views they're getting, and then the spreading of it, because there's a lot of them. And so it's building into this pressure pyramid that's pushing up through YouTube and Twitter, and they don't like it. You know, it's a real problem for them. Now, what is interesting, though, is they're going to screw themselves all over again, because they're suppressing it. They won't know the actual metrics involved in it, and so the progressive left is going to be blindsided in the next set of elections. because they're going to be believing in this great blue wave or whatever the hell it is, right?
Yeah, I call that a brown streak in my underwear. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way they're going to feel about it. It's, just like they were self-blinding to those elements that brought Trump to power. It was quite easily visible, in the months ahead of the election, that there just wasn't coverage for the Clinton gang at a grassroots level. People were just not discussing the Clintons the way that Trump was being discussed. And people have, various opinions on Trump and so on. And that's not my point. My point is that they were shocked when it occurred, and had right up to that last minute, right up to election day, had been running around shouting that, Trump can't win because of, he'll never win because of. And yet he did win, and they were simply self-insulated and self-blinding to that developing reality. They're doing it to themselves again by not acknowledging the trend that is the walk-away movement. And you would think that in the professional politician business, they would want more information as opposed to excluding more. But it's a double-edged sword. Information helps wake people as well.
Yeah,
they're also being split by the Democratic Socialist movement, and so
within their own party,
they're pretty much screwed. They're split into three parts, and yeah.
Your Webbot called this a while back. The Democratic Party is not looking good.
Yeah, I think the Republican Party is going to get majorly affected in the next go-round, though. Not in the
dirt and stuff.
Because of the
secrets revealed.
The escalation of that as we go forward, and the fact that a lot of so basically political parties are organizations intended to rig elections, to throw elections one way or another. That's their whole point. In order to do this, they have to have a hierarchical system in which power is exerted on disparate minds, on people that would otherwise not be 100% aligned with you. And in order to make them 100% aligned with you, you have to have force of some kind, leverage to apply against them. And part of that leverage comes from a historical view. So the more senior members that they lose, the more dirt that's going to be lost on other members. And so the less effective that force can be exerted. And the new ideas come on in, the things loosen up, and there's more of a questing nature of what they're doing as opposed to a rigidity. And so we're in one of those times of flux for all political parties, and the survivors are going to be those that are developing that far look and are working now for 2024 kind of gains, because it's going to take that long to pull together some form of a consensus. If we actually follow the Constitution, instead of the less than 1,000 representatives, we should have over 3,000. And so we should have the same kind of chaos that you have in India, or France, multiple parties, conflicts, coalitions, all of this kind of thing. And really, that's the most, in my opinion, that's one of the most effective ways of keeping power out of a centralized power base and spreading it out such that the people can be less affected by the attempted rise of despots. So our system is actually kind of guaranteed towards a very rigidity, a certain rigidity of control, very much like the Chinese, the way it's structured. It's going to be awful hard to displace the Communist Party. Here, it's going to be awful hard to displace the deep state.
Well, I think it's time to change gears. Let's get into some woo-woo, Webbot, crypto.
Sure.
That's whatever. I can feel everybody who hasn't even seen this yet. When are they going to start talking about that stuff? What about Litecoin? Ask about Litecoin. Ask about Digibyte. Yeah. Of course, we don't have a live stream to have that, but yeah. So, you've been paying attention to any new data perhaps coming in, or you haven't really?
I'm running reconciliation routines now. It's hang on a second. We've got this local weather condition here called beach scum, which brings up all of this dust and debris and this fog-like stuff. Now, I've been running reconciliation routines against the last report, seeing what language has popped up. In the process of doing so, it tells me which temporal markers are kicking over. So we should be at a real cusp here early next week, so it'd be Wednesday or Thursday, probably the first part of August. and we'll start seeing more information about Digibyte and the next move up with it. We should anyway. I mean, that's the way the forecast in model space is. The next bulge of language about it should hit end of next week. Like I say, probably Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, there should be some new news about the cryptos that'll take us up that next leg. I'm pretty sure we're into the bear market or the bull market part of the Bitcoin forecast. It's going to take us up here. Sure seems to be playing out that way. What I'm looking for, though, is the yet to occur, I don't want to say volume spike, but maybe that's the most appropriate term. There's a temporal marker for some activity within the Bitcoin market that will kick off the next leg of FOMO and that kind of thing. And so I think we're fairly close to that, although it might not be until mid-August before we see that aspect of it. Some of the other smaller minor temporal markers have already fallen.
Yeah, because there's a few, like I say, sources say, some people I've followed and listened to sometimes, where they feel like we were gonna have a nice run up, which I mean we are. We're over $8,000 again with Bitcoin, but mid-August or so, whatever it runs up to, whether it was 9, 10, 11K for Bitcoin, then a big correction was going to come, and then maybe it would start over again. I'm not sure if your bots picked up on that.
No, the data sets don't have a big correction until much later in the fall. And I think part of the reason, I mean, now I think that that's the reason, is because of the ETF, that they'll put some kind of pressure, some support pressure under the price of Bitcoin as we go forward. There's also some forecasts for some technical breakthroughs in the whole field of off-chain reconciliation, like the Lightning Network, and being able to tie it back into the chain without problems. And so that's going to boost a lot of the confidence. So there's a forecast. The forecast language is that a test of an idea for off-chain reconciliation back into the blockchain is successful and is going to be proposed to be adopted. It's somehow related to the Lightning Network and that kind of off-chain activity, and it's going to prevent centralization, and so will be adopted. But we've got to live through the testing of it, and then the announcement of it, and then the discussion of it, and then the proposal for the adoption so we've got 4 temporal markers there before we get to the point where there's a major boost, which would include a major jump for Litecoin.
I was just going to ask. I was going to ask about Litecoin. That was where I was going next. And also, do you think that plays the role where we finally start to see it inching to the 1/5 price of Bitcoin, or maybe that might be something else?
No, I don't have any indication that that's the point at which that occurs. The data would seem to suggest that the ratio of the 1/5 to Bitcoin to Litecoin occurs at another juncture down in the future here of great excitement, where we've actually entered into the area where people wake up in the morning and think, aha, Bitcoin, and instantly have a joyful feeling.
But regards to Litecoin?
At that same time, that's when we get the forecast for the ratio of 1/5 to Bitcoin. So in other words, that joyful feeling for Bitcoin is dominant, but it's at a time where all of that emotion is spilling over into the other altcoins. And Litecoin is benefiting greatly at that stage because we've come through those 4 temporal markers, and they're talking about adopting this particular solution. Sorry, guys, it's just very dusty.
That's fine. No worries. Yeah, I was going to say, your stomach must be killing you, man. You had the surgery, and now you're freaking coughing.
Yeah, well, I haven't really been able to cough since the surgery. These are just little minor puffers. I've got this interesting little for a breathing device.
Oh yeah,
keep you from having pneumonia and stuff, right?
I thought you were lactating or something.
No, no, it's like a bong, with no reward, though.
Yeah, and by the way, Bix, with that outfit, I'm just gonna tell you, I know your little minor thing, dude. If you were playing a role as a cowboy or a movie or anything, that you are absolute like. I would look over at you if you walk right by and I didn't know you were Bix Weir. Oh, this guy's he's been that way all of his life. Like he's that guy. Like it fits you. I'm telling you.
Totally believable. Yeah.
Yeah. It's coming out of the Grand Canyon. It's a 3 Amigos video, and back to Litecoin. I've been doing a lot of research on Litecoin because we got the Litecoin Summit coming up, and I'm going to throw a party the night before. Anybody wants to come, send me an email. It's the 13th of September, but I've been doing a lot of research on, because I still am, I mean, Litecoin is my #1 holding because I believe it will be available for use as a means of exchange when we need it the most. And that's, and so I'm looking at Litecoin and what Charlie Lee has said in the past, what's going on now with the Lightning Network, and then the atomic swap integration of Lightning Network. And I'm like, and Charlie's comments to me says there's going to be kind of a marriage of Bitcoin and Litecoin and kind of the rollout at the exact right time as a means of exchange, of a scaling solution, as a solution to the exchanges, those criminal exchanges where you can do atomic swaps instead. I mean, it really is all coming into play, I think, by the end of the year. And then you got the Lightning or the Litecoin Summit timed, I think, perfectly in mid-September. And then you have the Litecoin. Next year is when the halving happens for Litecoin. So it's like, it's the perfect storm for Litecoin. I don't care if it's $80 or $8 or $8,000. I want to be loaded up on Litecoin as we go through this transition, more of a failing banking system and a solution to the big problem of means of exchange.
Yep. Well, as a means of exchange, the thing that's going to turn everything around is going to be the atomic swaps, cross-chain swaps. Once that's happening and it's reliable, then you can kiss exchanges goodbye. Other than for newbies that are trying to do an exchange for dollars, there'd be no real need for them. And you get away from that level of criminality of pooling. Plus, you'd have the benefit of they can only look at it from a transactional viewpoint. They'll only be able to look at it, government, as though it were FX trading. And FX trading is a non-taxed activity. So it's going to really shift the governmental gears about what they're trying to deal with once there's atomic swaps across and cross-chain swaps. Then it's software talking to software, and it's like, you know, at what point was there a taxable event? I can't tell you. I just know that I, you know, started with Litecoin and now I got some Bitcoin, or vice versa.
I think if people are looking for, because we've been saying, you know, Litecoin is like gold. You should be, you know, 1 to 4 relationship or 1 to 5 relationship. And we think Bitcoin's going to go to the 100,000 mark. And everybody's like, well, wait a minute. That would put Litecoin at about 20,000. Well, maybe not 20,000 if you're just counting, if it's $100,000 Bitcoin parties, including Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin Gold, and all that. Anyway, it's going to be a monster number compared to the $80 or $90 that it is today, given that, you know, people have asked me, how does that happen? What is the impetus? And I think it's going to be the implementation, the marrying of Bitcoin and Litecoin. Bitcoin Core does not want to be, they want to lock things up on the Bitcoin side is my take. They don't want to be the scaling solution. They'll leave that to Litecoin, I believe, with the Lightning Network. And Charlie Lee is knee deep with the Lightning Network. He works with them. He's always the test case, like Litecoin. And Charlie sold everything just because it would be such a high-profile spot to be in, the centralization aspect, if Charlie owned massive amounts of Litecoin. By selling his Litecoin, he can say anything he wants on Twitter, which he does, and he can be a focus without being a financial interest that the SEC or someone would come down on him and say, you're too centralized, you're going to be a security. I think everything is coming into place for Litecoin to be really elevated into a different position than what it is right now.
Yeah, that poor guy gets trolled quite a bit too, and you know, he fought back on one troll. You know, I got it at $362, and you know it's down at $82, and you sold all yours when it was $300. You know, and when do you think it's coming back, or whatever he said to him? And Charlie said something like, he's like, believe me, I'm working hard as I can to get it back above 400, so the trolls like you will leave me alone.
And then all the articles said, Charlie says it's going to 400 instantly.
Yeah. Right.
Oh my God, are you kidding me?
Say, Joe, the three view version there is frozen.
Oh, my side looks great.
Okay, over here.
Okay, all right, just frozen at my end here.
Okay. Yeah,
we don't get better looking if we move around at all.
Yeah, the viewers will see everything perfectly. It's all good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, the thing about Litecoin too, though, is the it's Bitcoin code. It's been slightly altered. They've gone for speed. They have not really reduced the security aspect of it, but there's a real point of discussion there, right? All of the effort put into hashing is not necessary. We're spending way too much electricity on something that where they're trying to do all the hashing, the SHA-256, et cetera, and there's never crack attempts against that, right? The people that are actually attempting to do cracking and steal coins are using all different kinds of methods, but no one's trying to crack the hash. Yeah. And we could have made the hash half as tough, and we'd still be in that situation where no one's bothering. There's just not enough. Even if you got the hash, you got to do it one by one by one by one on each and every one of the coins, and that's just not an efficient way for these thieves to work. So we're guarding against something that's very unlikely to occur, and we can get a huge boost in speed by cutting the hashing algorithm in half. But it's not going to happen. However, the approach that Litecoin has taken technically is going to achieve that same boost in speed by really worrying about those things that matter and that are most likely to be attacked. So it's a very interesting time. Early December for Litecoin and Bitcoin is going to be just a fantastic time this year. And I suspect
you heard it here first.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, but I suspect that Litecoin will be one of our big news items in early 2019. And then, of course, as we go through 2019, everybody's going to be gearing up for another halving, which is going to be in the Bitcoin world. Yep. And so,
is that 2019 or 2020?
2020. But it's going to affect prices way ahead of that, as the expectations grow on that aspect of it. And then there's, we think, getting back to our previous discussion about the censorship and stuff, and we think we're really masters of the universe. But, the amount of volume Twitter does in a day combined with Facebook in a day is a small 1/10 of a fraction of one of the minor social media in China. And so as the world becomes more multipolar and more Chinese language focused, the amount of energy going into the English language media is going to really start to dwindle. And this is why we're seeing a lot of the pressures that we're seeing now, because we're running into that same sort of constraint of money affecting the lying media, the mainstream media, and it's now affecting the social media. Google's revenues, YouTube's revenues, way down. Twitter, same thing.
Yep. I just thought of something just because you mentioned China, not movie industry, but it made me think of an old Webbot thing you said to look out for, where Hollywood and movies and actors would start heading to China. And I'm thinking with Pedogate out of control right now and getting worse as far as better, however you look at it, better being it's being exposed, but worse because we're finding out what they're doing. But the whole sex trafficking and the Nixon whatever group, that lady, the Seagram's fortune, she just got nailed. Like, I almost wonder, is that stuff like that's probably going to help propel another entity to pick up, say, hey, you guys it's being destroyed over there. We'll grab some pieces over here, and I guess it'll maybe be China. That becomes the next Hollywood or something. I don't know. It just made me think of that when you mentioned the word China for some reason. That may help push that prediction to come true.
Well, they make more movies in a month than we do in a year.
Already?
The Chinese. In fact, China, the scope of it is just absolutely staggering. I heard or read the other day that the Chinese government is putting money behind a new college that's all about online detective skills. Forensic, like forensic accounting, forensic programming, this kind of thing, analyzing. And the reason they're doing this is because the sheer number of scammers in China is vastly huge relative to our population, for instance, right? The population of the U.S. There's for every one of us, there's an active scammer running around in the Chinese population, and the Chinese government is aware now that it's going to do nothing but get worse, and so now they're having to put in place those constraints, and thus have the enforcement mechanism to basically start a whole new level of enforcement for the future to try and keep these things calm. And the reason that they're having to do so is because of the number of riots they have every year that cost the Chinese government funds, lives, and treasure, property. And it used to be that 70,000 was a reasonable year. Now they're looking at 150,000 riots that cost them in either police lives or property damage, or et cetera, every year. And a good third of those are triggered by financial frauds, where lots and lots of people invest in a company. It turns out to be a scam, and you got a major riot on your hand in one region where that particular scammer happened to work. And so the government is of the opinion that they'll be able to do, like a Pinkerton's detectives kind of an agency, and train a whole new generation to help go out and capture and get these people before the giant mega scams erupt in social unrest, because they're very much afraid that any given one of those, and you got a revolution on your hands.
Yep, and they don't want to get rid of that power.
Right. Preserve the power. Yep.
Clif, I had 50 million people asking me about Veritasium, any changes in the data. I mean, price to me means nothing with Veri because it's not really traded on exchanges. Right. But any changes in the data, or
there's a big link up between Veri and our traditional exchanges of NASDAQ and I guess you'd have to say, I don't know, the Wall Street Stock Exchange. And so there's a lot of language linking these up. And at the moment, it would be easy to interpret that as saying that behind the scenes, there's some technology that's going to be involved in this that will be Veritasium based, that is going to get propelled forward because we'll be using it, or it'll be rolled out when the NASDAQ online market comes out for cryptocurrencies, when its online exchange comes on out. And now at the same time, that I think in the data set shows up before October. At the same time, in November and December, we have this emotional run-up in Veritasium because of something that they do in early November, because of something that rolls out at that point. And that's all I've got on them. The amount of data growth in that particular set is relatively small. There's not a whole lot of new aspects that are popping up, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that Reggie runs it as a private company, so he only makes announcements here and there, and then the rest of it is FUD kind of stuff that comes on out, as opposed to large discussions that you might find in the forums or Reddit about Digibyte and these kind of other coins, where there are development teams and so on that are actually out there discussing their development issues and these kind of things. Reggie's private company approach has something of a dampening effect on new data there, but it's not going to be the veritizing of gold and silver that's going to propel the emotional aspect of Veri up in November and December, but something that they'll announce in early November as an accomplished fact. And so it just kind of waiting around, see what's going to happen with those guys.
Speaking of FUD, I talked to the guys over at Salt Lending. There's been a lot of turmoil and FUD being spread. It all stems from one post that one guy said, "Oh my God, the CEO is leaving, so the whole thing's a scam. It's going to implode." And so I called them up. I do have a contact up there, and they did announce that Sean Owen, the CEO, has left. Sean Owen was one of the co-founders. He wasn't a banking guy. He's an idea guy, a big crypto guy. Salt is moving from the concept of a crypto company to a financial institution, basically, and they needed different leadership. So for those of you holding Salt, nothing much has changed, except they do have some new things rolling out. They aren't giving away the $27.50 salt tokens to pay off your loans anymore. That was a promotional thing. But they still have 100 employees. They're still working with the banks. They're still writing loans. They got 50 million in loans. Everything in the FUD world that's being said is completely ridiculous. Salt is not closing doors. They are continuing to be that transition thing. A lot of companies are chasing after them in that world and spreading a lot of FUD. Supposedly, they did have problems getting the banking regulations in California and a couple states, but they've got 30 states now, and they're still expecting California. So yeah, truthfully, there's not much changing other than a lot of FUD being spread, and we'll see what happens as it goes further. And are they gonna in Dick All? Well, this is a huge Dick Allgaier hit, because he RV'd Salt and said, "Oh my God, the CEO is going to stand down." And how would he know that from a number? He wouldn't. This was months ago. So he nailed that. But he also, in that same RV, said they're going to sign or have signed a MOU, a memorandum of understanding, with another financial group, which will propel it. So it's one of those things that's, the FUD spread, it's the only crypto that I've recommended that is trading below its ICO level, because it started the ICO at $1.50 and now it's like $1.10 or it's $1 or something like that. And of course people give me crap because right. You know how it is. I can give them 40 home runs and then you strike out once and it's the world has ended and I'm the slime.
Tell me about it.
Right. But I'm not selling my salt. I have confidence that it'll be part of that transition. I don't know if it'll be the best performing crypto from $1.20 wherever it is right now. But I like it. I plan on using it, getting a salt loan, and paying off in the salt tokens that I bought. So that's your salt update for the day.
Cool.
Well, the thing about Allgaier is really interesting too, because at one level, I'm actually going to have him train me in RV just to try it out, see if I'm any good at it. But at one level, it's the same kind of problem that I run into, which is that, do I actually tell people about some of the detail layers that are appearing in the data? And on some of these companies, it's like, no, I'd rather not say anything about it because it might intrude on something that's happening in real time, right? And so I was rather hesitant to put in the stuff about the point of sale system for Digibyte. But I figured that, well, any contract negotiations that were underway would have been more or less concluded by the time that I brought the report out, so I was safe talking about that. But I feel a certain level of responsibility not to intrude in the normal course of events by these outside things. And you could see that if it were the other way around, if there was going to be a merger or some kind of thing like that, and you talked about it or Dick Allgaier did in a report, and some of the parties might say, well, hey, our secrecy has been blown. We can't conclude these negotiations, that kind of a deal. And so you would actually be intruding on the normal course of events simply by reporting stuff ahead of time. So there's a great deal of responsibility there. It's not quite the same issue with the CEO leaving, although it sort of touches on it. And I think we owe the developing cryptocurrency paradigm the service of being cautious about the kind of information we put out, because it's not all equal, right? And sometimes it may be that our prescient forecasts are not going to be doing that situation any good, and so it's probably best just to sort of shelve them and put them away. But it was a very good hit for Dick Allgaier, regardless of the circumstances, and obviously shows the ability to pull things into the present out of the future relative to circumstances. And again, I think that the FUD thing with salt really struck me a lot like the FUD thing with Veritasium, where it was a single point source. There was only one article about it. and I kind of wondered if it was a paid FUD, a paid FUD attack, because there are so many people doing the same paradigm as salt. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. This beach scum is just terrible stuff.
Do you have any plans to do another report? And if so, do you have a time frame by chance?
I'm going to do another report, probably more out of boredom than anything else, because I just have to sit around and eat and sleep to try and regain weight, and then pretty soon I'll start eating and sleeping and exercising. But I'm running reconciliation routines now, so it'd probably be mid-August before I could turn on data gathering again. I don't think that there's going to be anything pertinent to be reporting on until we get into September, October, that kind of period, because then I'll have a good short-term data view that will take us into 2019, which is going to be ever so exciting.
So very earliest, probably be a couple months, maybe 3 months.
Yeah, probably a couple of months at the very earliest. Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of it has to do with the recovery aspect of this. I've been through major abdominal surgery, and it really kicked my butt. I've lost a lot of weight, and so my primary like I said, I was going to spend, I told you in the hospital, my goal is to spend at least 10% of my day farting, as proof of digestion, right? But no, I need to gain the weight back, and it's, I'm going to actually have to devote some level of work to it. I can't allow myself to think it's just going to happen on its own. That being the case, it actually takes away from time for other things. But a couple of months out, I should actually be able to give an estimate probably around the 13th or so of August, because I'll have turned the servers on, cleaned out the repositories and that kind of thing, as to when the data would be able to be interpreted. So that'd probably be 9th or 10th of September. I could start in on it.
Okay, cool.
That should be. I think that should be right in the hot spot of some banking turmoil coming down the pike. I keep an eye on Deutsche Bank a lot, and I can't remember the time they had good news coming out of that bank, and it's the largest derivative holder in the world. And that we saw that chaos in 2008, and it had to be bailed out with backdoor bailouts and a lot of congressional approval, which I don't think is coming. I don't think if the banks stumble again, I don't see Congress bailing anybody out, because they can't agree on anything right now.
Yep. I agree with you. It's not going to happen. No bailout. Yeah. And the banks are going to fail, but it still looks like regional Italian banks are going to take us there.
Oh, yeah? Because, obviously, oh, man, I was ready for that one. Obviously, Deutsche Bank is a huge investor in the European banking system, the sovereign debt of the Europeans. Deutsche Bank is the majority of their investments, not counting probably including the derivatives as well, is on European soil, and I don't see anybody doing real well over in Europe.
Oh, we lost your mic.
Yeah, then we've got the issues of the that are starting to surface out of the Vatican and their financial situation. So that'll more will come on that in the next few months, and that's going to be pressuring again northern Italy, but also probably a lot of the derivatives that Deutsche Bank has a handle on.
Is that Monte de Pesci again?
That's only part of it. There's a lot of the data sets have the Vatican has a tendency to concentrate a lot of negative language around it, and there's a native or a natural component that I have to discount. But even discounting it, it looks like we're going to get lots and lots and lots of very negative language from the Vatican, starting from the financial side. And there's a lot of words about corruption, thefts, and all of these kind of issues, payoffs, bribery, murder, big giant detective story kind of a stew. And that's one of the things that's going to be weighing on the European banking system as we go past the equinox. And so I was really looking forward to that, because of the ancillary parts of that forecast that go to the very long-term forecast about the riots that free up stuff because the Vatican is broken into. And so we should see economic/political riots that are going to be not necessarily focused at, but will certainly impact Vatican financial sources. Again, though, it looks to be northern Italy, not Rome, that we'll be seeing the first of these emotional tone indicators for chaos. And it happens around the equinox. So it's going to be a very interesting time indeed.
When is the equinox? September
21.
21?
Yeah.
And you a lot of your work rotates around the equinox, right?
Oh yeah, around equinox and the solstice, and then the whole thing is done in a lunar calendar base because the lunar calendar better reflects the emotional states of the populace. We actually seem to be living on a lunar calendar and not a solar calendar. So under the circumstances, we just have everything on a 13-month lunar calendar.
I'll get that.
No, I'm going to let Kathy leave a message on that.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else you guys got to discuss? Want to discuss that we missed?
No.
Perhaps.
I wanted to discuss everything in the world, but we have
Yeah.
just so much time, and I think your updates are invaluable. We are so happy that you are back in the saddle, so to speak, and it was a very scary time. I was in the Grand Canyon talking to Kathy. I said, "What's going on? What's going on?"
Well, hey, it was scary for me too, but it's nice to know that the situation has at least been resolved, even if the resolution was somewhat harrowing and dramatic.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though, the number of people that have contacted me. I've got two guys. One's Taiwanese, another guy out of Texas, I think, both of whom have grandchildren or great-grandchildren that are on a failure to thrive. They're like 8, and I think the other guy was like 6 or 7. And they haven't been able to be diagnosed, and nobody knew what the hell. And the one guy in Taiwan took his kid in and said, she has this, the intertussusceptum, and they ran her through, and sure enough, the grandkid did have that. So it was, and hadn't been able to be diagnosed for 5 years. No one looked there though. So just interesting about that. I think I'll probably end up having to get this.
Okay.
All right.
No,
Okay, so I'll see you guys.
All right.
Okay.
Take care. See you guys later.
Bye.
See you guys.